Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on Rash Pixel FM. I'm Pete Wright, and right over there is Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Pete Wright.
How you doing, Nikki Kinzer?
I'm doing pretty good.
All things considered. We're in an all things considered kind of a space right now. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. We've shaken up our schedule a little bit, given what has been happening in this country and on this planet, and in our community, frankly. And we're going to talk a little bit about dealing with the pandemic and where we are and what is it doing to your ADHD and how are you living with it and what are the emotional constraints. And we have our very favorite Dr. Doug is here to talk with us and help share some of his wisdom with us as we navigate uncertain waters with.
And I just want to add, we're also going to be talking about working from home as well, because I know a lot of people are making that transition and they're not exactly sure what to expect or how to make it work. So I'm going to give some tips at the end after we get done talking to Dr. Doug about what to do that will make it a little bit easier for you.
That's right. Absolutely. Before we get started with the conversation proper, head over to takecontroladhd.com. You can get to know us a little bit better. You can listen to the show right there on the website or subscribe to our mailing list, and we will send you an email each time a new episode is released. You can, again, connect with us on Twitter or Facebook at Take Control ADHD. And if this show has ever touched you or helped you make a change in your life for the better, we invite you to visit patreon.com/the ADHD podcast and become a paying supporter to help us grow the show, to continue to support the platform, to have wonderful guests like Dr. Doug on the show. Patreon is listener-supported podcasting, just a few dollars a month. You can guarantee that we continue to thrive in the future. Of course, make smart financial decisions in time of uncertainty, but we're here for you. That's all I'm saying. So thank you. Thank you in advance to all of those who are considering to join us. And thank you, as always, for those who are already members. We appreciate your support. All right, here we go. We're talking about anxiety and stress and the unknown in the age of the pandemic. Now, it was interesting how this came about, because I think Nikki and I had already been thinking about how we're going to talk about what we're doing here. And then I get this text from Doug saying, hey, I got things I want to share too. We got to come together and do an episode and make this happen. Yeah. And so that's kind of where we are. So I don't know, how do you want to start, Doug? You want to kick us off and share a little bit about what you're hearing from your folks, and we'll kind of weave in from there?
I was actually wanting to start where you guys are. I can, for people who don't know me and my background, I am a psychologist. I've been counseling people since, almost 30 years. Lately, I do leadership development work with doctors. I've worked with medical patients a lot, and hundreds of doctors too. So, because I worked with disease so much at Vanderbilt when I was there in the integrative health clinic, I just realized everything that I taught them is stuff that people can benefit from in this time. Suddenly everyone needs that. The course that I developed at Vanderbilt was called Living Well with Chronic Pain. And the truth is, it's really just living well with chronic distress. Right? Whatever that distress is. And right now it's a virus. And then there's all the secondary distresses too. Could they hear when Nikki was talking about buying potatoes because everyone else was, even though you didn't need potatoes?
I don't think they heard it, but I'm happy to share the story. So I went grocery shopping on Friday afternoon, and my intention was to go grocery shopping, but there were no grocery carts. available. So I had to use one of those little handheld baskets. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to go in and get what I need for dinner and I'll come back another time. Right. But as I was going through the produce, I was seeing all of the potatoes were going away. People were putting potatoes into their bags or into their carts. And there was one bag of potatoes left. And I thought, I need to get it. And so I grabbed it and put it in my little handheld basket. My basket was really heavy with the potatoes and everything else that I was sticking in there. But yeah, there was this like instinct of mine of, I better get that. Like, if I don't get that, something bad's going to happen. It was weird how it just sort of takes over you.
So, and I wanted to talk about that secondarily too. That's really, it's tricky because that's not a real problem, but because everyone has gotten afraid and gotten silly, the biggest one is toilet paper. I mean, has everyone heard about that? Right? Somebody started this idea that there's not enough toilet paper. And so now it's true, right? Everyone started doing that. And now if you were left out, you're in a problem.
That's the secondary virus, right? We have the virus that we're all trying to do the right thing to help stem.
Yeah.
And the idea virus, which has gone out of control.
Well, and there's not just one, right? There are many of them.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk a little bit about those. So in integrative health, you have all kinds of people kind of schlepping all kinds of products. And some of them are beautiful, but what we really focused on, of course, since I was in an academic university medical setting, was one that were scientifically based. The first thing about controlling your anxiety in this situation, which is, I think, the biggest Google search that people are doing, is listen to accurate information only, and only listen to what you can use. The CDC puts out information. Johns Hopkins has a great webpage for tracking how the virus is spreading, if that's useful to you. I mean, to me, that, I don't know, some people will get more anxious looking at that. If that's what happens, don't look at that. That's not helpful. The simple things that we know are the important things to keep focused on. Keeping social distance, avoiding big crowds, washing your hands regularly. Like my new practice for myself and my son is when we walk into our home, first thing we do is wash our hands, right? You sing happy birthday twice, which is a nice little thing too. as you're getting water all over your hands, you do in between your fingers and you don't forget your thumbs, right? You'll be as good as a surgeon if you pay attention to all the details there. But this is important because this is stuff that actually matters. My guess is I'm not really that worried about toilet paper because I don't think the entire supply chain has broken down.
Well, and they've been very clear about that food supply is okay. We're fine if we just stop buying it like hooligans. Stop hoarding pasta, people. Everybody will have enough pasta. Weird. This is my theory, and I wonder if you have any. I wonder if I'm even close to right. That we have been spending, and specifically the Pacific Northwest, the last thing that we needed to prepare for was the Pacific subduction zone. Everybody was terrified about, the West Coast cleaving off the side of the country because of this giant fault. And so we all learned how to prepare for that, which means have a bunch of water, have a bunch of food, have a bunch of non-perishables, all that stuff. It's like that's the only disaster we know how to prepare for. So when we think about disaster, we immediately trigger that response that, okay, I better start hoarding stuff because you never know when the corona zombie apocalypse is going to occur. This is not that disaster, and we have to retrain ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything psychologically to that?
Well, yes, because think about it, or rather don't. What happens very quickly, right? Well, if you start, here's the most basic rule of anxiety that people need to understand. Thinking increases anxiety. Okay? Yeah. I mean, it's just that simple. If you want to decrease your anxiety, do something. Now, it is important that we do something rational. Because we did something irrational and stormed the stores, then, everyone is even more anxious, right? But that started with thinking and not thinking accurate thoughts. It's your brain. When you get into, this is what people look like as they're headed into fight or flight, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's actually 4 states of brain. There's freeze, which is, we usually look at deer in the headlights. And then there's fight or flight, which everyone's familiar with. And the last one is faint. And that can be like playing possum. It's playing dead. It's the thing that happens before you die if you're a gazelle. If you ever saw a gazelle getting eaten by a lion, they don't feel that. Their brain has said, there's no point to pain anymore because we're done here. And their whole body just goes into faint and they're food now. It might surprise people to know that the only place that pain exists is in the brain. The brain creates pain. There's no pain in your body ever. That's why you can also have your arm cut off and still have phantom limb pain because your brain hasn't adjusted to what's real. Obviously, that's a really deep thought, but these very simple thoughts that are always, frothing up, thinking increases anxiety. It's really important to have whatever it is in your life that helps you to feel calm and peaceful, centered, connected with other people, love. These are the really basic things that we need right now. We need peace. Now, I'm going to return to some tried and true material, which is meditation. When your body is filled with anxiety, it's also great to do meditation that involves your body. Yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, even martial arts. If you already know those things, that's a really important starting place because going for a walk, especially if you can go for a walk in nature, these are really simple grounding practices that help to metabolize. When you feel anxiety, it's a biological response and it fills your body with hormones that tell you need to do something. And the problem is there's nothing to do.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that because I think that is that initial instinct is you want to do something, but you're right. What we need to do is nothing. We need to.
Well, you really don't need to buy all the potatoes, right? You don't need to you don't need to become a prepper in that sense right now. We just caused problems by doing that.
We did. We did. Secondary problems that now the people who need it most, the people who can't afford to hoard, are the people who still have to go to the grocery store every week or every 3 or 4 days. And there are people who are, in the service industry that just can't afford to live like, maybe you're choosing to live if you're doing that. And so this is a sort of a spread the wealth period. This is, I've been likening it to our generation's moon mission, right? And it feels like this is the grand thing that we all have to come to terms with and do our part, even though doing our part means, as you say, doing nothing. I'm not engineering a rocket. I'm not it feels like I'm not pulling my weight, but I really am if I just do nothing.
And you follow what the guidelines are, right? Don't go out, stay in, be with the people that where they've been and they know where you've been, and wash your hands and do the things that you should be doing.
Right.
I saw on the news this morning that there's still all these people that are going to bars and they're celebrating St. Patrick's Day, and it's like that is just a disservice right now. Like and so I think what they're looking at is, does the federal government then come in and say, these are the rules all across the United States and not just patchwork?
So here's the thing. The federal government is, I think, slow to respond to this crisis in an appropriate way. That does need to happen probably. Like everything in Nashville is already shutting down anyway. Local governments have just started doing that. And that's wise. The truth is, there is a danger here of under responding to this. The thing we need to do, though, is do nothing. Nothing is a very particular thing in this case.
Yes.
Don't go out when you don't need to. Don't go to crowded places. Don't, this is a very strange thing because it's usually the opposite of what I think. But it's a great time not to touch each other.
Yeah.
We all need love and affection. And more than ever right now, we need to understand that, not shaking hands and and keeping our distance is a way to be loving. Jazz hands,
Yeah.
right.
Jazz hands, live long and prosper.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of options for this. I think that this gets to what, and I'm going to use this, I don't mean this derogatorily, right? I really don't when I say this word, but there is a certain, possibly uniquely American, I don't know, entitlement spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
That comes with, I've worked hard and I deserve what I've gotten. And I'm just so angry that all of this is happening to me. And my hunch is we all go through this at some level. And that is one of the things that helps to fuel the hoarding aspect, that, I'm going to do whatever I need to do so that my quality of life, my standard of living doesn't change at all during this period. And I'm just mad. I'm mad that all of my favorite things are canceled. I'm mad that my favorite movies are being pushed out a year. I'm mad at all of this stuff. And that's another emotion that I feel like we have to figure out how to process. How do you advise people, I mean, to get to the other side of that particular trigger?
In the base of the brain, there are two states of being. One of them is peace, and the other one is threat. These are the two basic states of being. So I don't want to make anger bad. It's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
But when somebody is feeling threatened, anger jumps up or fear jumps up. And then we tend to do things that are totally irrational. If we're in a state of threat, so much energy gets pumped through our emotions, they get amplified, and then it shuts down the thinking part of our brain. Because all of that threat response from our body is designed to kill something like a wild animal that's trying to chase us. It's not useful in human interactions unless you're in a dark alley and somebody has a knife, When it comes to the frustration and the anger that people feel, that's very real. We're attached to our way of life, and our way of life is changing. We need to kind of get below the attachment to a particular way of life, and at least for a few weeks, and say, but wait a minute, what's the point of this way of life? The point of all the things I'm doing is to try and find fulfillment, to try and maybe contribute what I can to this world, to feel connected to people I care about, to express my gifts, and to enjoy myself, right? These are all good things. We can do all these things in a new way. It's a transition. It's a grief. It's an adjustment period, because I don't know what my kid's going to do to run around. It's not warm enough yet for him to go play outside, and soccer's canceled.
It's very real. And, I think that is exacerbated by our desire to keep informed and our practice of keeping informed, right? We have notifications. The latest one this morning, as I woke up with my kids and we started to try to have a normal day, was, I know school is closed for 2 weeks, but the CDC is now saying no gatherings of over 50 for 8 weeks. And that can be sort of terrifying, especially when my daughter's in a high school class where the average class size is 45 or 50. Like it's a terrifying experience. And so I want to go back to what you just said, which is, finding fulfillment. Like if we, instead of talking about this as a thing that is, that if we just hunker down for 2 weeks, everything will be normal. Instead, maybe the practice is, I need to change the way I'm living my life for an indefinite period of time and figure out how to find fulfillment in this completely new, undescribed way.
Yeah.
Where can I find joy in living with my family in a new way, in helping to educate my kids thanks to the resources that their schools are providing, or maybe not. Maybe I'm doing that myself. How can I find a way to create some new behaviors and habits around the house to give people exercise and burn off some of those non-soccer calories.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like?
Well, so let me first say, my heart goes out to everyone who just heard what you just said. The latest CDC recommendation was news to me when you just said it.
Well, what hit me with it too is that I have a nephew who's planning on getting married the end of May. And my guess is that wedding's going to end up probably most likely being canceled. Prom is being canceled. Graduations are being canceled. I mean, these monumental events. So it's not just I guess that I understand parents being frustrated because yes, you've got these kids at home and what do you do? And now you have to work at home. But it's also all of these like milestones in people's lives that are getting canceled.
Well, and
too.
let's reframe that. Everything is changing. Now, the reality is this has always been true. But in this country, there is, this exceptionalism because we kind of developed, I think, from the 50s through the 80s, where the economy kept growing. Everything seemed to always be in a growth phase. And what happens there is it's easy to get used to that and take it for granted. And what's happened too is because we've got an ocean on either side and friends above and below us. So we have relative peace and prosperity. And what happens is people have begun to think that phrase in the Constitution that's, the pursuit of happiness is something that is an exterior journey. And I would suggest that rather than even thinking about this as a temporary change, which for some people it will be, but for some people, I hope this is actually an invitation to a permanent change. The truth is we can't grow our economy forever, and we're starting to see that now. There are problems with that, right? Mm-hmm. The truth is we don't need to be happy. The more that we increase our prosperity and our economy and all of that, we have not increased our happiness. In order to increase our happiness, we really need to look to our minds. It's the regulation of that out of control, anxious thinking that's really going to make the difference for us. It's the ability to create happiness inside ourselves. I think if we go back to 1776 or whenever that particular phrase was written, what we're talking about is there is no mall where you can go buy stuff. Everyone's got the same. What they were talking about is a spiritual journey. You're free to have your own spiritual life, whatever you conceive it to be. That's what I think they were saying. Your pursuit of happiness has truly always been an inner thing. And we've gotten used to all these externalities. But if you have an external problem, that's fine. It's the virus, right? It's the changes in the store and not being able to go to work. Those are external problems. Happiness is, if you're not happy, if you're feeling distressed inside, that's an internal problem. The good news there is we can create our own peace and joy on the inside. There's some really simple principles. The first thing I mentioned that I really thought was important is get accurate information. The CDC, your local public radio. If you put in if you Google, I tried this last night in Nashville, I've had that page up, Public Radio Nashville, and they're updating my local circumstances. Same thing was true for Chicago. I bet you the same thing's true just about any city.
There is something related to that I just want to make sure we get out, that in terms of trusting information, because that's a real challenge right now, is figuring out what resources to trust. And I really stand by this, that the resources that you that you tend to be able to trust the most are the resources that don't shy away from giving you information that hurts. Right. Yeah. That sharing bad news. Right. Yeah. The CDC saying this might go longer than you think it will, then a lot of organizations are telling you that it will. That's an organization that's not afraid to give bad news, but also sometimes good news. Also, there are treatments that we are finding might be, or at least a treatment protocol that's on the horizon. Things that are mixed. If you look for the mixed bag, generally you find an organization that's more sort of resonant.
Yeah. That's fair. I think the other thing is, please do not go by what you see on Facebook.
Right.
Yes, I've seen so much garbage on Facebook. I don't even want to try and name it all. But there's some decent information mixed in with just stuff that's just crazy. And anything that, the one thing that we know about Facebook is that if it's extreme and weird, it'll go viral faster. Mm-hmm. Right. And so don't do that. If you read that,
Well, and there are people who are trying to make this an economic boon, right? These are the people who have bought up all the Purell and are now reselling it
Right.
on eBay for a huge market. And the same goes for information, right? We're using this idea virus as a way to make a buck, and so we have to find a way around those areas.
So I just got the link from Trina. I want to do a seminar, a webinar, I guess you call it. And I have to wait until next week because honestly, I'm just kind of getting everything in place to do it. But all the tools that I taught people in my class are useful in this situation. So the tools that I taught people have to do with shifting your body from a state of emergency. So fight or flight is a state of emergency that your body is in that's great at fighting infections. Infections are happening when a bear grabs you with its teeth or something. What we want is our body to be in a very calm state where there's no emergency. Then it's doing long-term maintenance, and that's when the immune system is designed to take care of things like viruses. So the link I want to give people is changetimeisnow.com is my website, and then /corona. And if people want to register there, I'm just going to, I think on Tuesday of next week, and we haven't even decided a time yet, but I'll get that out to people, but it's just going to be free. And I might even put it up on YouTube. This is all new to me. I'm not a social media guy. So didn't imagine this happening, but it feels like, okay, I have these tools. The first one is, love and connection. Like if you're in that angry, agitated state, you miss out on the people in your own family. And that's a tragedy because we really need to be connecting at the heart level right now. The next most important one is stress reduction. Now, stress reduction is ubiquitously important. And so I want to teach people a variety of meditation techniques. Basically, if you don't like the word meditation, I don't really care. It doesn't matter. It's what you're doing is you're wiring relaxation into your brain so that you can approach whatever the stressful situation is with a relaxed and calm, which means orderly mind. And then you can make good decisions. That's the best tool you've got is your mind. Like the first thing that is important is like if you're suddenly hit with something, this could be an argument too. What you want to do is stop everything and take 3 breaths. Right? If you're about to have an important conflict, just stop and take 3 breaths.
You say that and I immediately breathe. I take a deep breath.
Yeah.
It's like it's this instinct, and you feel better immediately.
Exactly. So you just change the way your body feels with 1 breath. And so here's the other thing to be careful about: longer out than in. Make the exhale longer than the inhale. If you're breathing in, your heart rate increases. If you're breathing out, your heart rate decreases. If you breathe out longer, you will decrease your heart rate, your blood pressure. You'll decrease all of those stress hormones that tend to really jack us up. It's really important that we take good care of ourselves in this time. It's really important that we recognize we're all in this together. We can either be all in this together or we can be all in this together all alone. The first is better.
Well, and what a blessing that it's, I guess this is the silver lining. I shouldn't say it's a
silver
blessing,
lining.
but the silver lining is that we are in an era where we can be connected online.
Yes.
So even if you have to be at home and be quarantined for 14 days because you've been exposed to this in some way, you still have the ability to FaceTime and Skype and be connected to your loved ones. And I think that is a huge blessing that we get to do that people actually do get to go home and work and not lose their jobs. Now, there are going to be some that will take that cut, and I totally understand that. But the other thing I want to just say real quick too is, Doug, you mentioned the the very first thing you were talking about is that connection with your loved ones. And if you are at home with your kids or your family, and for my situation, they're teenagers, it's nice to have them home.
Mm-hmm.
I get to see my daughter and my son more now than I have in a long time. And so in that way, I guess it's, again, looking at the silver lining. It's like, well, if we're going to have to be here, at least we can be here together and, enjoy that. And you can still go outside and run and walk, and maybe not in a marathon type of way.
Right. Just
but
not in groups of 50.
But not in groups of, not in big groups, but you can still go outside. And I think when you were talking about nature, that's really important.
It's huge. Yeah. Being outside is going to be really important. Sunlight is actually, I think I don't want to overstate any positive solution right now. Right? Because like you said, there's no toothpaste. I mean, when you say that, I'm like, really? Somebody did that. Okay. But there's also, sunlight is good for this. But I don't know that that's going to make it all go away, because it's summertime. But it's also good for us. What's good for us that calms us down and makes us happy also improves our immune system.
There you go. I mean, that part is settled science. Like, we know what happens when your body interacts with vitamin D. We're not saying that the virus is going to go away if you're out in the sun. This is not like the Colorado like TB treatments where you remember those things of people sitting in lawn chairs outside in Manitou Springs with their mouths open trying to get more sun into their bodies. That's not what we're talking about here, right? The sun is.
I'm talking about noticing a flower.
It is a beautiful day.
Yes. It's a beautiful day. There's this beautiful flower. I'm going to stop and I'm going to actually smell
that
right?
flower. Smell that flower, Nikki Kinzer. Smell it.
I'm going to. Now, I have them on my desk even.
Yeah. There you go.
So let me add to that. How to manage corona anxiety is what we want to offer people. And the difficulty here is I don't know if our webpage is actually working.
Well, we can deal with that offline, and so we'll put a link in the show notes, and we'll put a link in the community for anybody who's interested. I'm proud of you for making that a free webinar because you are not hoarding Purell in this period, and that's very generous of you. And so
I want to, like, I heard a guy on TV here in Nashville recently talk about, it's really important to stop those runaway thoughts. Okay, that's cool. I just wish that he had finished that with how.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what.
So how do you do it?
Well, that's like a whole. That's a lot. But the first, that's why I want to. I need more time to share all of that. That's what I want to share in my webinar. But like the first thing is like just those 3 breaths. As you're focusing on your breath, you know what you're not doing? You're not focusing on your thinking.
Focusing on the right. Yeah.
You're doing something. It's so small, but it's still incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, as you're focusing on yourself and your life, if you realize, if you focus inward, it tells your brain that there's nothing out there trying to get you. That helps to reduce the threat energy. If you can see me, I'm putting my hand on my heart. And if I stop and just feel my body and notice, this is a moment of suffering. If I'm completely threatened and agitated, I need to be able to bring some compassion to myself. If I see my loved one doing that, and here's the other problem. When you are in a threat state, it is very contagious to the people you are close to. So that spreads just like that. It's really important, if you notice that happening, for everyone to take a time out so we can calm down. Like I was thinking, it's great to have your teenagers in the home, Nikki, until you all get cabin fever.
Yeah.
And then suddenly things are going to get a little intense,
Right.
So then you send it for a walk. But, to be able to keep, to realize, I don't demonize emotions. They're a great source of energy, and they're the source of liveliness in us. What we want, though, is to make sure that our emotions aren't overwhelming us in that sense of threat or attack, And so our emotions need to be bridges to other people. and to ourselves, not weapons or walls. So anyway, all of that, meditation is a technique that helps you to get there. Eating, moving. It's really important that we eat in a way to take care of ourselves. It's really important that we keep moving. Your body was made to move, and moving with intention is a really, like if you're moving furiously, that's kind of like you do in an emergency. So we want to train our bodies. No, I'm moving with intention in my movements. And that is training my body that everything's okay. That's not how you act if you're being chased by a bear. So reducing our stress, increasing the love in our relationships, this is all the kind of stuff that's important.
The thing that I feel like is a mantra for me right now is something we say around here all the time in the context of living with ADHD. It's you're not alone. Well, you know what? We are, planetarily speaking, not alone.
Right.
This is the great unifying event of our generation right now, right?
Humanity.
It is affecting us all right now. If we can figure out how to do this, there might be hope that we can, tackle climate change or
anything else.
Whatever other grand like planetary initiatives. We can do it. We can do it.
Yeah.
If we practice.
It's almost
behaviors.
like that Independence Day, where if we get invaded by an alien, then suddenly we all come together.
Yeah. Suddenly we come together. And this is
it's an opportunity.
Alien invasion right now.
And it's not just a generation. This is in our lifetime. Yeah. There's never been anything like this in our lifetime. This is really a spectacular change. And we really need to pull together, be a force for good in the midst of this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I love that. I think that message.
Now, we talked about doing some of our working from home fear conversation in this. Nikki, you want to change your strategy a little bit on that?
Yes, I do. I'd rather end it here because I think that this was a great message. Doug, thank you so much for being here and talking to us about that. And then let's make this working from home a separate episode that we can just focus on, because they're very two different things and I don't want to confuse the two subjects. And I think his message is very important. Mine is more on the practical side.
Okay.
So.
All right. So we'll start there, and we will we'll take on the other one in the next episode. So thank you all very much, Dr. Doug. As ever, you're an incredible resource. Thank you for bringing your heart to this show today. We appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the chance to be here. Oh, and Nikki, the heart is very practical. Don't.
That's true.
Most practical thing we've got for life. Anyway, thank you so much, both
of
you.
Thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to the show. We appreciate your time and your attention and your social distance. We love you, everybody. On behalf of Dr. Doug and Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright. We'll catch you next time right here on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.